Chapter 6 Ogres and Kestrels. Cedric! Help! Lily raced through the woods with her hands outstretched. The dim light limited her visibility to just a few feet ahead of her, and as she ran, branches slapped her in the face and roots slithered into her path to trip her without warning. The ogre swung his club again, reducing an entire thicket to refuse, and the force of the flying debris knocked Lily to the ground. She gripped the earth to stop it from spinning, then glanced over her shoulder to see the ogre barreling toward her. She screamed and rolled away just in time to avoid the club as it crashed down, gouging a deep trench in the earth. "Cedric, please help me," she shouted again. As she scrambled to her feet, the ogre roared again, spraying her with slobber that burned her cheeks. She dashed through a grove of oak trees, but the ogre followed close behind, swiping trunks to ground as if they were reeds. Lily plunged into another thicket, then cried out in pain as thorns slashed her hands and arms. With her arms shielding her face, she plowed forward. She wrenched herself free from the last clinging brambles, and realized she'd stumbled into a clearing walled with thorns in every direction. She turned in place and squinted through the shadows in search of a way out. An ancient tree towered above her. Could she climb it? No, she thought. He'll knock it over like a toothpick. Another roar shook the earth, and Lily's guts sank. The ogre bounded into view, its monstrous profile hulking against the blue-green sky. It pulverized 2 more trees, then lifted its club high to strike her. Lily had no choice except to scramble up the tree. She scaled halfway up, too desperate to glance down. Then a sound filled her with dread. The ogre was laughing. Lily stretched for the next limb, but it hovered beyond her reach. She groped the trunk, praying she'd discover another handhold, but her fingers found only peeling bark. With another grisly laugh, the ogre clobbered the base of a tree. The roots, centuries old, held against the blow, but the trunk bowed and jostled Lily from the limb. She slid down and grasped the branch below, but found no footing, and her legs flailed into the air. Yet another cruel, mucusy laugh gurgled through the glade. Lily fought to hoist herself onto the branch, but her aching arms failed her. She called for Cedric again, but her voice had faded to a raspy croak. She dangled 20 feet off the ground, all alone, with an ogre salivating beneath her. The laugh sounded again. Through the inky darkness, a pair of unhinged green eyes appeared beneath her. The ogre grasped Lily's branch and bent it toward the ground. Lily thrashed and kicked wildly as she sank down through the night, toward the ogre's putrid, gaping mouth. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. Lily's fingers, slick with perspiration, began to slip. She kicked the air just inches from the ogre's upper teeth. "No! Get away from me!" she screamed. Suddenly, the Sioux stone, which had glowed a dull red while she ran, changed color. It flooded through the woods with the same brilliant, pale blue light that had radiated from it in the schoolyard when Lancelot appeared. Below, the ogre squinted against the glare, then averted his eyes and groaned in revulsion. Lily's muscles burned, and she couldn't hold on any longer. Her grip gave way. She sailed downward, shut her eyes, and braced herself for the end. It never came. She opened her eyes and gasped. A hammock slung between 2 branches had stopped her fall. The fabric was unlike anything she'd ever seen, shining as if imbued with starlight. A roar pealed out from below. The ogre had abandoned its club and frantically swatted at something small and bright that flitted in its face. From Lily's vantage point, it looked like a darting comet, pirouetting through the air, diving at the ogre's head, and then spiraling out again. Between the ogre's grunts, Lily could discern the shrill call of a bird of prey. It can't be, Lily thought, suddenly recognizing the sound. No, it doesn't make sense. It's impossible. A ribbon of silver, shimmering like the slip in which Lily sat, spun from behind the bird and lashed about the ogre's legs. The monster teetered, groaned, and toppled to the ground with a whomp. Without pause, the bird bound it with silver cords until its entire bulging, grotesque form shimmered in a mess of tethers. Just then, Cedric burst into the clearing. "I'm here, Miss Lily!" he shouted, springing forward with a bundle in his arms that looked like burning coals. With a flourish of his wings, he lifted into the air and dumped his cargo onto the wriggling ogre. The ogre wailed as the coals burst into flame. Its facial features muddied in the fire, and it shrank to the ground, writhing and lurching as it shriveled. Lily watched awestruck as the monster deteriorated into a tumult of smoke. then blew apart into ashy gray rivulets. The next moment the ogre had vanished, leaving only the coils of silver rope limp upon the ground. Cedric stamped out the remaining flames licking the ground, and shook his head in disgust. "Another shroud," he groaned. "Well, that settles it, Miss Lily. We can loiter no longer. Pity, since I had finally found all this ember weed to start a proper fire, but the longer we stay here, the more danger we tempt. These shrouds, I'm convinced, are hunting you, Miss Lily." Cedric blew upon his smoking foot, then placed his claws on his flanks. "Miss Lily, I beg your pardon, but are you listening?" Lily didn't answer. The bird that had saved her life had released one end of the hammock and gently lowered her to the ground, and she sat mesmerized, hardly breathing, as the stunning creature perched on her hand. She examined the bird's chiseled beak, its beautiful arched neck, the striking markings on its face and breast. Its talons hugged her fingers with just enough pressure to secure, but not to hurt. Lily knew the bird's every feather, every curve, every tilt of the head. "Rigel," she whispered, "is it really you?" Enraptured with the creature in her hand, Lily didn't notice Cedric saunter up to them. "Know this chap?" he asked, startling her. "He certainly was helpful to us. Rather the good Samaritan, if I may say so myself. Thank you, sir, for your timely services." He gave a courteous bow. The bird replied with a high-pitched squeak. The sound flooded Lily with joy, and for the first time in months, laughter sprang from her chest. "Are you all right, Miss Lily?" Cedric asked. Lily rose to her feet, and the bird, unfazed, continued to balance on her hand. "I'm wonderful, Cedric, although I don't understand any of this, which is nothing new, I guess. How do you two know each other?" "I don't know how this is possible, but I made him up when I was little." Cedric's eyes widened. He looked from the bird to Lily and back again. "May I inquire about your opinion?" he asked the bird. The raptor replied with another squeak. Lily laughed again. "He doesn't talk, Cedric, although he does understand. He's a star kestrel. His name's Rigel." "A star kestrel? I don't believe I've heard of them before." Lily flushed with sudden self-consciousness. "Ever since I was in first grade, I've pretended that stars were birds. All different types and all with different powers. Rigel," she lifted him up, "is a star kestrel. He's named after a blue supergiant star in the constellation Orion." Now I'm the one who doesn't understand a word being said. Lily smiled. "I didn't used to know any of this stuff either, but my dad taught me about stars one summer when we went camping in the mountains." She stroked the feathers on the back of Rigel's neck. They felt cool, like the caress of silk against her fingers. "He's beautiful, isn't he? When he wants, he can do all sorts of things with silver. I can't believe he's really here. He's real." "My lady, if you had any doubt about your identity as a steward, I think you've proven yourself." "But Cedric, how did this happen? How is any of this possible? Rigel, this place, ogres and knights, even you, I feel like I'm dreaming." Cedric smiled. "My dear," he said, "you're more right than you know. The truth is—" Lightning flashed over the clearing, followed by a low rumble of thunder. "Oh dear, we need to move on. We were foolish to delay." He gathered a few scattered emberweed pods. "I'll explain as much as I can en route, but we must depart. Quickly. If more shrouds are pursuing you, Miss Lily, there's nothing like a thunderstorm in the wilderness to give them an advantage." Lily shuddered, and a sickening unease tightened her stomach as she remembered her flight from the ogre. "Cedric," she said, "the shroud this time. It looked like my grandmother. Before it turned into an ogre, I mean. It sounded just like her, too, at least at first." Cedric's face darkened. "Shrouds fight with deceit, Miss Lily, and disguise themselves as the things for which we long." He held her with his solemn gaze. "They can see right into your heart." "What exactly are they, Cedric?" "In your world, they are called nightmares. They are the echoes of evil manifested in dreams." His words gripped her like ice. Suddenly her own yearning for home, for her mother's embrace, and for her father, deep into anguish. "Cedric, if they look like the people I love, how can I tell if it's a shroud, or someone I can trust?" "Most people can't tell, Miss Lily. That's the devilry of shrouds." With a few strands of Rigel's silver thread, he tied a mat of dried leaves and moss to a branch, then set it afire with a pot of emberweed. The flickering light of the torch illuminated Lily's face, and at the sight of her, Cedric's own expression softened. "Don't fret so, my dear," he said. "Thankfully, you're not alone. I'm with you, and even better, you have special help." He pointed to the stone. "Have you noticed it change color when the shrouds appear?" You mean the bright bluish light? Not that, only with the shrouds. Lily thought for a moment, and shivered again. Red, she said. The stone turned red. That's your clue. Consider it a warning system. So, when the stone glows red, I should run, Miss Lily. Run for your life.